So here we are. We have finally made it to Dragon Age Inquisition. I am unbelievably, overwhelmingly ready to jump into this game with y'all. This is probably my favorite game of all time. It's what sparked my love of RPGs back when I played on console. It's also what started my love of modding when I switched to PC. So this is a really formative game for me, and I'm excited to share the experience and the story with you. Today I'm going to be introducing my first of two original characters that I've been developing. I'll talk about the relevant lore and backstory for her, and I'll end with a showcase of her character creation sliders for anybody wanting to use them. And the mods I'm using for her are in the description of this video. For the other games I've played for the channel, I've also done a modding tutorial for each one, but I'm thinking I'm going to skip that this time since there are already some good guides out there, and also selfishly I just want to jump into playing. But if people really want a tutorial, just leave me a comment and I'm sure I can cook up a video for you, no problem. Last housekeeping bit, I had initially thought of structuring these Let's Plays as more of a walkthrough for anybody new to playing the game, but I'm thinking now that'll be a bit too tedious for the whole game, and also I'm trying to finish 2 playthroughs before fall when Veilguard comes out, which might already be a pipe dream, but doing a full walkthrough will slow that down even more. So I'm going to do these the Pawsy style Let's Roleplay kind of way, where I give insight into my characters' motivations for their choices as I go along, and I'll drop in some tips every once in a while for newbies, but I'm going to cut the episodes down like I like to do to showcase the story here and focus on the development of my characters, since that's my favorite thing to do. With that said, if you really want a specific walkthrough or tutorial video, all you have to do is ask. Just leave me a comment. But without further ado, I think we are ready to do this. Let's jump on in. So, with each of my canon playthroughs, I want to differentiate them by race and class, just because that's what I want to do. So I just finished Dragon Age 2 with my male, human of course, Hawk, and my origins character Lyra is a dwarven commoner. So for the first Inquisitor, I'm going Dalish. The first Inky I ever made was an elf named Seluna because I was deep into that D&D lifestyle. But I'll be honest, for a while there, I told myself I'd never make an elf again, only because I noticed that so many people were playing elves, and I have whatever the opposite of FOMO is. Like, if people are doing it, I don't want to do it. Also, I try not to be a hater, but I was really sick of these super Eurocentric elves with pale skin and white hair, especially that I was seeing. Like, it's a trope in the fantasy genre. I was just getting a little sick of it. But after some deep introspection, I realized that's a silly thing to get hung up on. So I'm back to loving elves again, especially for Inquisition, where there are so many Dalish-specific dialogue options and plot relevancy. So if this is your first playthrough, elf is a great choice. Now for class though, I think the elven archetype is most traditional a rogue or a mage, so I'm going to go against type here and go warrior. And since Lyra used mostly sword and shield, I'm going to go big with this one. We're going two-handed, which we can always change mid-playthrough, but I like the idea of seeing this lithe figure with a huge maul or a battle axe in her hands. I feel like it would be a fun juxtaposition. The only downside is warriors are a little slow, like their combat actions aren't super responsive, but I do have a mod that speeds up combat movement, which should help a bit. And lastly, for difficulty, I'll go with normal like usual because I'm here to enjoy the game as it was intended, but if you are looking to get all the achievements, you'll actually want to turn on Nightmare. I will link a complete achievement guide in the description, but my goal here is to flesh out these characters' stories, and selfishly, I would love it if by the time we're done, if y'all could help me decide which one of these two should be my canon Inquisitor before the next game. So yeah, here is our character. Now, while I get the world state set up, I want to highlight 2 key parts from the summary that are essential to the character's backstory. First, the part that mentions keeping the ancient elven religion and traditions alive. And the second part is that she was relied upon by the Lavellan clan for food and protection, heavy on the protection bit. So this is a person who cares deeply for her culture. Maybe she was even a bit disappointed when no magic manifested in her during adolescence, because she would have loved to have been her clan's keeper and to have been in charge of those cultural ceremonies. But regardless, she's always been fascinated by elven history, which, side note, is a bit of a hint as to whom she's going to romance. But she decided to direct this love of her people into what she's good at, which is fighting. So she's going to be protective. She's probably volunteered to go to the conclave because she knew it was going to be dangerous and didn't want any of her clan to be put in danger. So while she might be suspicious of others, she's fiercely loyal towards people she considers her people, whether that's by bloodline or by chosen family. Which is also why this romance is going to hurt so much. So here she is in the Dalish scout gear. I would have loved to have put her in the Dalish warrior armor, but there was a pretty glaring neck seam that I just couldn't get past. So, but I like this starting gear mod too. It's cold in the Frostback Mountains, so she probably wanted a little fur and a scarf, even though her feet are bare. But yeah, anyways, there are some other pieces of her backstory that I'll talk about in the character creator, but I'm gonna do things a little differently this time for that. Rather than you watching me fumble around and tweak these sliders 5,000 times, I'm gonna create this character, get her all set, and then I'll come back and show you her sliders and talk about why I chose this look for her. All right, so here she is, my Lavellin. I think she turned out great. For this character, I was going for a look that's hinting at a sort of indigenous ethnic heritage. According to the Dragon Age wiki, which I will cite frequently throughout this playthrough, David Gator, the lead writer for the series, said that the original inspiration for the Dalish came from Roma and Jewish people, and then it evolved into North American natives. This is evident in the Solus concept art, which makes me want to cry every time I look at it, knowing what could have been. But that's okay, we still love the egg too. But anyways, I wanted to honor those Romani and native roots without being culturally appropriative. I think I did well, So yeah, let's break down these sliders. So I just started with the first head and face shape, but I moved the skin tone down to the second to the last color, which is this really pretty warm brown. For the complexion, this is a modded complexion that has a flipped version of Cassandra's scar on it, which I really like because it fits her backstory. She's a battle-scarred warrior. She's gonna have some signs to prove it. For the eye color, it is just the dark brown on the far right, though we get to edit it more on the next screen. This beautiful hair is called lion's mane. Again, it's in the description. It clips a teeny tiny bit, but nothing too glaring, and I got the ears in a position that I really like. The hair color is black. I might, once we get into it, add a mod that makes it true black. And for the voice, I am going against type.
As long as the job gets done, I don't care about the rest.
There are 2 voices to choose from, and elves will automatically set to the British accent.
How much is this going to cost me exactly?
Which sounds like this.
You leave me no choice.
But if we're going with the Native American inspiration, then she should have an American accent, not this posh RP accent. And I personally think Sumali, the American voice actor, is pretty underrated. I like her performances in the game a lot. Now, because we went with the non-standard voice, I also have a mod called Exertion's Voice Set workaround to make sure the voice matches when she's making noise in combat too.
You leave me no choice.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. All right, on to head and ears. For these sliders, they move on the X and Y axis, so I can't give you an exact location, but you can look here and eyeball it. The ears were pretty tricky. If you've ever watched any of my Let's Roleplays, you might have heard me complain about how much I hate when hair clips through ears. Well, I made it doubly hard on myself by also adding some earrings here that don't move. So I had to position the ears in the way where the earrings fit, but also not. It was tricky, but we got there. For the cheekbones, I wanted to make sure to kind of maintain this square-ish face shape, which I like a lot. And the jaw will, especially when we get to that slider, will be important. I liked the pronounced jawline there. Cheek shape. For the brow, I just wanted to be careful not to squish the Valasline, which is the tattoo on her head there. And then for forehead, you just have to be careful not to bring it too far in because then there'll be a gap at the hairline. And now on to eyes. I went with the 4th eye shape, which is this kind of almond shape. And for the size, I was inspired by my recent playthrough of Dragon Age 2, where the elves have very pronounced eyes, like Meryl's eyes, which I liked a lot and thought I'd kind of recreate, though I still wanted to maintain the shape. Then position. Position can be a little tricky because if you move it too far into the face or too far out, it looks very freaky, and sometimes you can't tell until you're in a cutscene. I think that's natural. Then rotation and spacing. Again, trying not to pinch the Valasline between her eyes. This eyebrow style is a modded eyebrow. I went with the one that looks like it has a slash out of one side, like she was cut and the hair didn't grow back. There's also this one that has like intentional, these 3 lines in it, but I thought it made her look pretty angry, which, hey, you know, she might be angry, but I thought I liked the story that I kind of headcanoned about, you know, because eyebrows have a story. At least they do now. But yeah, I thought that looked good. I am going to move the position, which actually doesn't raise them on the head. It just makes them thicker. So I'm going to fatten them up a little bit. Just don't know whether to go 3 or 4 clicks in. That is one thing I will say. Typically when I actually start playing the game and see her face in the game lighting, I'll notice some things that I messed up, and then I'll just run to the Black Emporium and make some tweaks. So if I end up doing any of that, when I end up doing that, I'll let you know what changes I make. For eyelashes, we just went with the longest. And then for eye color, on the outside we went with brown. And then the inside is this kind of orange color, which created these amber eyes, which I thought were unique and also fit this color palette of these brown, orange, gold, kind of autumn tones. And now on to nose shape. So I went with the second to last. That last one did look pretty good though. So indecisive. Okay, sticking with the second to last, not making changes now. Nose size. Then position. That is one thing that I like about this jewelry mod, that septum ring is, it moves with the nose tip, so it's adjustable, which is nice. So now we have the nose tip. And nostrils. That is one thing I'm looking forward to. Oh, and then there's no broken nose. I thought about adding one, but I didn't, again, want to mess up the tattoo. That is one thing I'm looking forward to in Veilguard, is there's supposed to be lighting options, which will be helpful here. We went with the second mouth shape. Here is mouth width. I do take it out like to the far, my really broad mouth shape. Position, thickness now. Actually, rather than me just waiting around while I show you these sliders, let me start talking about the Vaseline, which will be on the next page. That's scars and tattoos. We won't pick any scars because they don't show up on the complexion, but we also don't need any because this one already has a scar built in. So for the tattoos, for a Dalish elf, they're called Vaseline, and they are super essential. We could always pick one that is pretty, but I actually think that we should pick one based on meaning, because each one is associated with a specific god from the Elven pantheon. So this one is for Durthamin, the keeper of secrets and master of ravens. Durthamin's most notable mythology is that he followed his brother Falandin through the Veil and into the Fade, convincing 2 ravens to take him to his brother so they couldn't be parted again, which I like a lot, this idea of crossing through the Veil for the story and also for the romance that we are about to see. I also like the idea Durthamin's symbols are a raven but also a cloaked figure, which I think means that this character will become immediate friends with Liliana, which I think will be a fun little connection. If you're making a Dalish character, I do recommend that you read up on the god that's associated with your chosen Vaseline. Just be wary of spoilers. If you don't want to risk it, I think Mythal is a goddess that is a great choice based on the story that is about to be told. Her Vaseline looks kind of like branches, or I guess more like wings, and they often wrap kind of under the eye. I'll try to show you a version. Where are they? Yeah, so kind of like this. These are modded Vaselines, but I like this mod because they're very similar to the original lore-based ones, so they don't verge too far away from the lore. Just different enough. So yeah, I think the Durthamin looks really good. And this is really silly because nobody would ever notice this, but when I pick a tattoo color, I always pick dark blue, like dark blue that is black, because if you've ever gotten a tattoo, you might know that with time it actually wears down and starts looking blue. But again, you can't really even see that, so only I know that. And last but not least, makeup. So I tried to stick, again, with that color palette of the reds, orange, golds, those warm tones. So we had kind of a red eyeshadow, and I kept the intensity up on that. Under eye color is kind of red. Under brow color, pretty similar. I did turn the intensity down a little bit on that. For lash color, we have so many choices, so I just picked the one that looks the most true black. Eyeliner color, this is really, really black, and then I turned that one all the way up. Blush color, I did make a little bit more orange-ish. I'm still not sure, even though I turned the slider down on that one, I think it might still be too dark. We'll see in the game lighting if it's too bright. Lip color, actually I'm gonna take it to the other side. When it's that low and on the color palette, it's really, you can't really see a difference, but sometimes in certain lightings you can tell. So I'm gonna go with a dark red there. And then for shine, I move it all the way down to the end. We just moved it up one click. If you move the shine up too much, it actually kind of like muddies the color of the lips and they start looking gray. And there's only one thing left to do, which is pick a name. I always try to go with something relevant to lore and backstory, and since there's a whole language, I thought of going with an Elven word, but I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole because then I was going to go with a Native American name. Then I realized many Dalish names sound kind of Celtic, but Gator has only said that they try not to use hard consonants, and with all that in mind, eventually I landed on a name that shows just how much of a literature nerd I am, because it's a name for a poem about visions or dreams. So even though it's not a name we've heard in Dragon Age, I don't think, it fits Gator's specifications and it fits the character's story. Because what better name for a person who follows Dirthamin and who is about to make out with a man who's obsessed with dreams and the Fade? The name's pronounced Ashling, though it's spelled Aisling, and I gotta give my character a nickname, so everyone meet Ash. We'll let the first scene play out to conclude episode 0, and we'll both see you in episode 1.